Level 1. The Watcher. You're parked across the street from a dry cleaner in Northern Virginia. Sedan. Tinted windows. Civilian plates. You've been here 6 hours. You haven't moved your hands from the wheel because someone might be watching you watch them. Your job is the most boring-sounding job in the agency. It's also the one that keeps the spies alive. You're a surveillance detection specialist. Today, a case officer is meeting an asset at a cafe 2 blocks down. He doesn't know you're here. He doesn't need to. Your job is to make sure no one is watching him while he does it. You scan the block in slow rotations. Every face that walks past. Every car that idles too long. Every window where the curtain shifts. A blue van circles twice. You log the plate. A man in a gray jacket bought coffee 20 minutes ago and hasn't taken a sip. You log the face. By the time the meeting ends, you've built a map of every pair of eyes on that street, and you've decided which ones don't belong. You miss one, the case officer dies in a foreign prison. You miss one, the asset is executed before breakfast. You don't miss. Promotion comes slowly in this work, but you've earned it. Level 2. The Identity Architect. You don't carry a gun. You carry a laptop and a printer that costs more than your car. Your job is to build human beings out of nothing. A case officer needs to enter a country as a Belgian engineer. You give him a Belgian engineer, birth certificate, university transcripts, tax history, a Facebook account dating back 9 years with photos of vacations he never took. This is called a legend, the story of a person who does not exist, lived in such detail that no background check can crack it. You bury it inside real databases. You buy domains. You age the digital footprint by months so it looks lived in. You also build the disguise, a wig that survives strong wind, a silicone mask that defeats airport thermal cameras, fingerprints printed onto polymer thin enough to fool embassy biometric scanners on the second swipe. You hand the package over and never see the officer again. If your work fails, somewhere in a country that does not extradite, someone is being interrogated by men who understand patience. You do not fail. Level 3. The Technical Operations Officer. The phone rings at 2 a.m. A target's apartment in a European capital. He's traveling 48 hours. You have a window. You and a 2-person team enter through a service door at 3:14 a.m. The deadbolt takes 11 seconds. The alarm panel takes 4. You photograph the position of every object before you touch anything. When you leave, every object goes back exactly where it was. You install a pinhole camera inside a smoke detector. You replace the original detector with an identical model that now transmits audio and video to a server 2,000 miles away. You install a second device behind the bathroom mirror, because the bathroom is where people speak when they think no one is listening. You leave the way you came. By 4:09 a.m. you are gone. The target returns home 2 days later, drops his keys in the same bowl, opens the same fridge, sits in the same chair, and tells his wife about his day. Every word goes to Langley. Level 4. The Cyber Operations Officer. You've moved indoors. You will never break a lock again. You sit in a vault under fluorescent light, surrounded by servers that hum at a frequency you can feel in your teeth. Your target is a foreign intelligence officer in a country that publicly calls America an enemy. You don't need to be in the same hemisphere as him. You only need his phone number. You send him a message that looks like it came from his bank. He clicks the link. The link installs an implant, a piece of software so small his antivirus reports nothing wrong. From that moment on, his phone belongs to you. You read his texts as he sends them. You listen to his calls as he makes them. You watch through his front camera while he eats dinner. You see what he sees. You hear what he hears. He has no idea. He never will. You do this to 20 people at once. You do this every day. You don't pull the trigger on anyone. You just hand other people a map of every door in the target's life and tell them which ones are unlocked. Level 5. The Targeting Officer. The data from the cyber team lands on your desk in a flood. Phone calls, financial records, travel logs, satellite imagery, intercepted cables. None of it means anything by itself. Your job is to find the pattern. You're hunting a network, a weapons proliferation ring spread across 4 countries. You don't know who the leader is. You don't know where he sleeps. You don't even know what he looks like. You only know that money keeps moving through 3 accounts, and those accounts pay rent on the same warehouse in a port city. You spend 9 months building a chart that covers an entire wall. Names connect to phone numbers. Phone numbers connect to flights. Flights connect to hotel rooms. Hotel rooms connect to one face that appears in 3 security camera frames over 2 years. You name him. You hand his file to the next desk. The case officer takes it from there. You never meet the man you spent 9 months hunting. You move on to the next chart. Level 6. The operational psychologist. The case officer comes to you with a target and a single question. How do we turn him? You read the file like a doctor reading a chart. He has no debt. He doesn't drink. His marriage is stable. He's a true believer in his country's mission. Money won't move him. Blackmail won't hold him. Ideology is locked. You read further. He was passed over for promotion 8 months ago. The man who got the job was younger and less qualified. You feel the door open. You write the playbook. The case officer will approach him as a foreign academic at a conference. The academic will mention casually that he's read the target's published papers and finds them brilliant. He will ask the target's opinion on a problem the target solved years ago and was never publicly credited for. Within 3 meetings, the target will feel seen for the first time in a decade. Within 12, he will be passing documents to a man he believes is the only person on earth who recognizes his genius. He never will. You also screen your own. Every recruit walks past your office before they walk anywhere else. You decide who breaks under pressure. You decide who can lie convincingly to their own family. When you're wrong, the consequences are written in obituaries. Level 7. The technical service engineer. You work in a workshop that does not appear on any map. Your unit is called the Office of Technical Service. Officers send you problems. You send them solutions. A case officer needs to record a conversation in a public park from 40 feet away. You build him a directional microphone disguised as a backpack buckle. A team needs to track a car they'll touch for 2 seconds. You build them a magnetic transmitter the size of a coin that survives a car wash. An officer needs to smuggle a memory card across a border where she will be strip searched. You hollow out a tube of lipstick and design the cavity to defeat X-ray imaging. You build cameras hidden inside shirt buttons. Listening devices baked into ceramic flower pots. A pen that writes in regular ink and also burns through a steel padlock in 9 seconds. None of it is mass-produced. Each device is built once, for one officer, for one mission. When the mission ends, the device is destroyed. The blueprints are destroyed. The notes are destroyed. The work disappears. So do you. Level 8. The Special Operations Group. The president needs something done that the military cannot officially do. The job comes to you. You belong to the Special Operations Group, the agency's paramilitary arm, drawn from the senior ranks of Delta Force and SEAL Team 6. You don't wear a uniform. You don't carry American identification. If you are killed, your body will not come home with a flag on it. Your first mission is a hostage rescue in a country the United States is not at war with. A case officer has been captured. He's being held in a basement in a city you cannot name. You fast rope from a blacked-out helicopter onto a rooftop at 2:47 a.m. You clear the building floor by floor. The case officer is alive. 2 of his guards are not. You're in the air again before local police reach the block. The next mission is a snatch and grab in broad daylight. A bomb maker walks out of a cafe in a coastal capital. A van pulls up. He goes into the van. The van pulls away. By the time anyone realizes he's gone, he's in a black site on another continent. You also swim. A month training in dry suits to plant explosives on undersea fiber optic cables that connect a hostile country to the world. When the cables go dark, the country goes dark. You are already gone. None of these missions exist. None of them ever happened. You have medals you cannot display and a passport that lies about every country you've entered. Level 9. The case officer. The agency decides you've been a hammer long enough. They want to see if you can make a stranger betray his country. This is the job movies pretend to show and never get right. You are now a case officer. Your assignment is one foreign target at a time. You read his file. You read the psychologist's profile. You memorize his routines, his weaknesses, his children's names. You arrange to bump into him on a street. You don't pitch him. Not for months. You become a person in his life. A friendly foreigner he sees at the gym. A neighbor who waves on the way to work. A man who buys him a drink when his team wins. You wait. You wait for the moment his marriage cracks, or his daughter gets sick, or his boss humiliates him in front of a colleague. You wait for the door to open. When it does, you walk through it. The pitch is the most dangerous conversation of your life. You are asking another human being to commit treason. If you misread him, he reports you in the morning, and you spend the next 20 years in a foreign prison where the agency will not be coming for you. If you read him correctly, he says yes, and you've just acquired the most valuable thing the agency owns, a human asset inside the enemy. From that moment on, you are his handler. You meet in parking garages. You leave packages in hollow rocks. You pay him in cash that cannot be traced. You are his only friend on earth. You are also the man who will get him killed if you make a single mistake. Level 10. The Chief of Station. You've stopped running operations. You're running a country. You are the Chief of Station. Every CIA officer in this country reports to you. Your cover is a polite job at the embassy. Cultural attaché. Political advisor. Something boring enough that no one asks twice. By day, you attend embassy receptions. You shake hands with the same generals and ministers your officers are trying to recruit, and you smile at them like a man with no secrets. By night, you walk into the secure compound inside the embassy and run a war. Every recruitment in this country needs your sign-off. Every break-in, every drone strike, every covert payment to a politician. You are the link between this country and Langley. When an operation succeeds, the credit flows up. When an operation goes wrong, the failure stops with you. You are the firewall. Your name appears in cables marked at the highest classifications. It will never appear in a newspaper. If it does, you have already been burned, and your career is already over. Level 11. The Deputy Director for Operations. You've come home to Langley. Your office is on the 7th floor. The view is of trees. The work is global. You are the Deputy Director for Operations. Every chief of station in every country in the world reports to you. Every paramilitary mission, every recruitment, every drone strike, every black site flows up the chain and arrives on your desk. You decide what gets approved. You decide what gets stopped. You decide which countries get attention and which countries get forgotten. You sign documents that authorize operations the American public will never hear about. You sit in the Situation Room next to the Secretary of Defense and tell the President what is happening in places he is not officially allowed to know about. You testify before Congress in closed session. You give answers that are technically true and carefully incomplete. The senators don't want details. They want plausible deniability. You give it to them. You sleep 4 hours a night. Your marriage ended a long time ago. The job is the only thing left. Level 12. The Director. The President nominates you. The Senate confirms you. You walk into the Director's office on the 7th floor and the building changes shape around you. You are now the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency. The Deputy Director for Operations works for you. The analysts work for you. The scientists, the engineers, the lawyers, the spies. All of them. You manage a budget Congress approves but cannot fully see. You set the agency's risk tolerance, the line that defines what your officers are and are not allowed to do in your name. You walk into the Oval Office most mornings carrying the President's daily brief. You tell him what is happening in the world. You tell him what the agency is doing about it. You tell him what is about to happen that no one else in the room knows yet. You have one boss. You have no peers. You are the most powerful intelligence officer in the country, and your name is on every star that gets added to the wall while you serve. The wall is at the entrance of the building. White marble. No names. Only stars. One for every officer who died in service. Some of them died doing the work you approved. You walk past the wall every morning on the way to your office. You never stop walking. And somewhere right now, in a dorm room or a barracks or a kitchen on a quiet street, someone is filling out an application on the CIA website. They click submit. They don't know what they just did. They don't know about the watcher in a parked car, or the legend buried inside real databases, or the asset waiting in a parking garage, or the cable that goes dark in the middle of the night. They don't know about the wall, but they will. They always do.